Recording in progress.
Call to order the St. Joseph City Council of August 19th. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm so lost right now. Item 2, public comments. Anybody wishing to address the council, step to the podium. Is this my copy? Okay, very good. Seeing no one step forward, we'll go to item 3, approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second?
Motion second, approving the agenda. Questions or concerns? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4. Oops. Item 4, consent agenda.
So moved. Second?
Motion and second on the consent agenda. Any issues? Yes.
If I just may, for the tobacco license, just so everybody's aware, there is a typo on the address, so we will get that corrected in a new license out. So.
Yeah, everybody caught that, I think.
What's the
Okay.
address? Well, what is the correct address?
It's 219
Cedar Street.
Yeah, 219 Cedar, not 219
Okay.
East Minnesota.
'Cause I went looking for that address, wondering, where's this tobacco shop gonna be?
It's a house, right, between 220 and 217. Okay. Motion and second on consent agenda. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay. Item 5, business subsidy policy. That, Nate?
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and councilors. For your consideration this evening is an update to our business subsidy policy. If Amanda can click it over here. Just got a brief PowerPoint to walk you through. Awesome, thank you. So just an overview, our current subsidy policy dates back to the early 2000s and was last updated in the early 2000s. Much of the original policy that we had in place had attachments that were missing or couldn't be located by staff, and there's been some statutory requirements since 2002 as well. So our revised policy essentially reformats our policy, charting in a more clear, succinct layout the purpose, goals, criteria, and the evaluation of subsidy request. And then we also updated just some documents for pre-application and application forms. So that way when folks are inquiring about our subsidy policy, we have updated forms that we can provide to them. It is a guidance document. We also removed language that was no longer relevant, just tied to different attachments as part of the policy. There is a requirement to conduct a public hearing when updating the subsidy policy. The EDA did recommend approval of this policy at the June 18th meeting, and staff worked with our legal team, including Taft and Northland, in review and drafting of the policy to update and make sure all the language was relevant and meeting statutory requirements. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I'd ask that the council open up a public hearing.
Anybody wishing to speak to the business policy or business subsidy policy update, please come to the podium, name and address. See when no one come forward, we will close the public hearing and move to adoption.
Move to adopt the changes?
I second that.
Motion and second, adopting the changes for the business subsidy policy. Any other questions or concerns? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion does carry. Item 6, Tammy Amdahl is here with, right? Yeah. Item 6, Tammy Amdahl, Northland Securities.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Tammy Amdahl with Northland Securities here to speak on 2 items, to do a debt it's coming up on the screen, overview that I do annually before the city, as well as to speak to the resolution awarding the sale of the Series 2024 A bonds. And as staff is bringing up the presentation, I will just verbally speak to it. So I'm going to cover the purpose, the study approach that we use for the study, an overview of the outstanding obligations, including preliminary estimates for the bonds that were sold this morning, as well as the source of revenue for the repayment of those bonds, and then speak to the city's credit rating. City does use the issuance of debt as an important and essential tool for financing capital improvement projects when a pay-go strategy is not either feasible or advisable for the city. It's important to monitor the repayment of the debt obligations. As you've heard me say before when I've been before the city council, your staff does an excellent job of doing debt management. The role of Northland in that we are asked to do, and this is not with fee, so this is an annual review that we do with staff, is a double check. So Lori and I go back and forth on the various outstanding series to make, and I am on slide 3 for the back room, for the benefit of ensuring that ongoing debt management. On slide 4, so the study approach that staff provides ending cash balances. That is some information that Northland would not have on file, and the verification of the current source of funding. And then we work on organizing that data and reviewing it. On slide 5, on chart 1, this shows the tax levy for debt service. It's projected debt outstanding, including the existing and an estimate for the 2024 new debt, which came in very close to that. So you can see a few years of, as structured, increase in the projected debt outstanding, and then that rapid amortization. On chart 2, that's the tax levy on chart 1. On chart 2 is the total debt outstanding, and here is where you can see that rapid amortization of that debt outstanding, the principal being paid off. If you can go to chart 7, slide 7, chart 3. What I would note here for St. Joe and just the type of debt that you have been issuing in recent years, including the debt with respect to the Series 2024A, the tax levy continues to be the majority source of revenue for repayment of that debt. That is similar in cities that would be similarly situated as St. Joe. On slide 8, chart 4, here we like to look at, and although the Series 24A bonds were not rated, and I'll explain that in a moment, you can see that St. Joe and just how you structure your debt fairly short term, that rapid amortization of the debt, and between now and 2042 with 100% of the debt being repaid inclusive of the 2024A bonds that are being issued this evening. If you can go to the next slide, please. If I can as well. With respect to the credit rating, the last rating for the city was in September of 23, AA-, and I'll speak to the fact that the current Series 24A, that you'll have the resolution in a moment, those are not rated because of the size. It was less than $1 million. A rating is approximately $25,000. From a cost-benefit standpoint, it was not in the city's financial interest to seek that rating. So there is no rating on the Series 24A bonds. But for the benefit of the council and the viewing public, the city still has that rating outstanding from S&P and maintained on your other debt that is outstanding. And at a future date, depending on the size of the issuance, it may and likely be advisable that you would seek a rating on bonds in the future. So that's the reason there is no rating on the Series 24A. The rating is, it's a credit rating is forward-looking opinion of the rating agency, and it simply reflects the opinion. In the case of St. Joe, it's S&P Global that rates your bonds. It's their opinion on your outstanding debt. Credit highlights. If you go to slide 10. In the last report, and there's no indication this hasn't continued to be a positive, city demonstrates strong financial management of its debt obligations in the view of S&P and in my professional view and the view of Northland. The bond rating AA- from S&P, some of the things that they highlighted in the most recent report, all that has happened since that 23 rating, these things would still hold to be true. And most importantly, that third bullet point, that rapid amortization of your debt. And I believe that next slide will be the last one, concluding. Oh, this one is still in here, but I'll just speak to it verbally. This is just a snapshot of the S&P Global rated Minnesota cities. This was current as of August 7th. And you can see that AA-, which is St. Joe's rating, about 20%, not of all Minnesota cities, but of the 315 cities that S&P rates, about 20% are rated with that double A minus. With that, the next slide will be the conclusion. So Mayor, Council, I would be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I would move on to speak to the Series 24A bonds and the resolution.
Tammy, the bonds that we're going to sell, did we sell these bonds already this morning?
So these bonds.
Or priced them
priced
to
this morning,
977?
But these bonds were not sold with what's called the trigger resolution.
Okay.
So it's subject to the city council's action
Got
this
it.
evening.
And if they come out non-rated or NR, and I'm an institution buying municipal bonds, because it says NR, not rated, do you think we'll pay a little bit more interest? Or do you think that bond manager is gonna look at the double A minus on last year's bonds and say, this is equivalent to?
The latter, and that's demonstrated by when we initially went out, in your finance plan that you saw, and as of Friday, what we anticipated to see was about in that 15% basis point higher. The sale went extremely well this morning, and there was strong interest in these bonds. So to your comment that underwriters, in this case TD, looking at that underlying rating on your debt being favorable. Now, these bonds don't have that rating. So
Right,
it's-
no, I know
so-
that. They're
but
gonna say
do I
non-rated.
believe that you benefited from that? The answer is yes.
And then we didn't have to pay the rating agency to put a rating on, we didn't pay S&P
That is
to
correct.
put
Now,
the,
the
so we
next
save
time,
money on
sorry,
that.
Councilmember, I'm interrupting you.
So we save money on not having S&P rate them.
You did, but in my interrupting you, what I wanted to convey is the next time you issue bonds and the size is large enough, your rating's getting a little bit stale, so it's not that you
Right.
ride that rating and then continue to get this, expect to get the same results that I believe that you got this morning.
That's all I have.
Anybody else? Thank you, Tammy.
So I will speak to the other item, which is the action item. So you have a resolution before you, and that resolution came today because the numbers couldn't be filled in until this morning. The bonds are being sold, as the council is aware, to finance the city's 2024 street improvements and to pay the cost of issuance of the bonds. The bonds are structured with relatively level annual payments over 10 years, again, speaking to that rapid amortization of debt. The method of sale was negotiated, and the buyer of these bonds was TD, and the rating was non-rated. Final maturity will be 2034, and the true interest cost without a rating was 4.55%. The final par amount is $977,000.
What's TD? Is that Toronto Dominion Bank?
So
That,
they.
that investment firm called TD?
Yes.
Okay.
So that they were purchased by them.
Got it.
Northland was the underwriter on the bonds.
So councilors are looking at adopting the resolution for issuance and sale of bonds.
So moved.
I second that.
Motion and second, adopting resolution 2024-053, issuance and sale of general obligation bonds. Any other questions or concerns? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion does carry.
Thank you, Mayor, Council.
Thank you.
Who gets this? Yeah, Tammy, you want?
Thank you, Mayor.
No, thank you. You too. Where are we at? Number 7, Knife River interim use permit. Who's got this one?
All right, good evening once again, Mayor and Councilors. For your consideration this evening is an interim use permit request from Knife River. And if we can switch over, Amanda. Just some background, Knife River is requesting approval to operate what's called a portable crushing operation, along with the associated storage and stockpiling of processed asphalt and concrete materials and rubble. The subject site is located directly north of their existing operation and east of Trobex and Gooden Company. Kind of hard to see up there, but the site plan was included in your packet. And essentially, that red outline on the site plan is the area that they are proposing to have those operations at. Some background, equipment on the site will all be portable and remain on site during production. The equipment also includes a portable generator, a loader, dozer, excavator, and conveyors. Typical material that you'll find. It's proposed to have these operations for approximately 3 weeks during the construction season, but that can depend on weather and demand of product. Here's just some pictures showing the operations and how they typically look for the material. Some finding of facts and conditions of approval. Hours of operation, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday, not including Sunday or federal holidays. The interim use permit is good for 5 years and has to then be renewed. The location and size of those stockpiles are limited to that approved site plan. We do have minimum setbacks to wetland areas. All trash on site is in stored or closed containers. The lighting is all full cutoff style and pointed downward. And then we have just our typical language tied to revocation and expiration of the permit. And any trigger, any changes to this interim use permit would then trigger the applicants to come forward with an amendment. With that, requested action for you this evening is to approve the finding of fact resolution 2024-054. Our planning commission did vote 7-0 in favor of the resolution. There was some discussion on not allowing operations on Saturday, but ultimately that comment did not gain traction with the majority of the commission. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. We also do have the applicants in attendance this evening as well.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Holly Renault, and I am representing Knife River, so I'm here to see if you guys have any questions or tonight's meeting.
Council, you got any questions?
Is it really only gonna operate like 3 weeks out of the year?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just, it's basically,
Temporary deal, huh?
right, yep. And the whole thing is, we've done it before where we were located at this time. Mainly, all we wanna do is we just wanna move it over so it'd be like the PID cut line.
Yeah.
And just to make more room and make it more easier for our trucks and stuff to come in, so it's not so, congested. But yeah, it could typically only be a week, 2 weeks. We can't see the future, but,
Sure.
yep.
I'll move on resolution 2024-54.
I second.
Motion and second, adopting resolution 2022-54. Other questions or concerns? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion does carry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Item 8.
Item 8. Is this you
Alright.
2 and 8?
Yep, it is. Rolling right along here. So I do have another PowerPoint here real quick. So the American Legion is proposing some building materials to redo part of their structure. And this includes the entire western side of their building. Right now it's essentially concrete block, and they're proposing to do steel siding with exposed fasteners and also do those exposed fasteners in steel in a red, white, blue to match the theme of the Legion building. Due to the location, being this is in our downtown district, there are limits on the allowable materials, and then any deviation requires that Planning Commission recommendation, which has occurred, and council approval. And that's why we're here this evening. Everyone's familiar with this building, I'm sure. So just to highlight, again, that western side is their parking lot side. The south and the east side are the ones facing Minnesota Street and First Avenue. This project does not include changes to those sides of the building. Those will remain in brick. The project also does include insulating the western side of the building. So our current code language is based off the downtown design plan, which is a little bit dated from 2007, but a lot of our ordinances are based on that. The plan recommend to not allow steel siding. Our current code allows no more than 15% of the exposed wall area to be a pre-finished architectural metal panel, and the code calls for those panels to act as like an accent or entry type of design. Again, the existing building on the south and west will remain as brick, and the project, here's just some depictions that the applicants have included for those steel siding. So the action requested is a approval of the Legion's request to construct the steel siding with the exposed fasteners on the western side of the building. Planning Commission did discuss and vote 7-0 in favor of this approval what's being presented this evening.
Move to approve.
Motion and second to approve the building material request. Other questions or concerns? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Item 9, who gets this one?
We'll start with it.
Who?
Excuse me, we'll start with the city attorney.
Okay,
All right, we looked at this request to defer assessments for the 2024 project on the Rassier Trust property. Sorry, I always forget that. So this Rassier Trust property, they had filed an application for deferment based on their agricultural use until development or sale of the property. And when we looked at it, we found it was in Green Acres, which by statute means that it's pretty much automatically deferred. We can still impose our interest rate, the same interest rate that we're using for the assessments, and then it would be collected when that property loses Green Acre status. So when it does go into development or ceases to be used for agricultural, then we could collect the assessment.
So if and the council really doesn't need to take any action at this point since it's going to be automatically deferred to the
right?
Green
Yeah,
Acres.
okay.
I think what we need to do is decide if we're imposing the same interest rate, but that's the only thing we need, I guess, council approval of. Because they did request that it would be at 0 interest, but the statute leaves it open to the city to impose an interest rate.
How long is the deferment?
Till it ends.
Yeah, it will
Until-
go until they sell it
Yep.
or
Forever
develop
and
it.
ever, Amen.
Could be 10 years, could be 50.
Could
Exactly.
be forever.
The Rassiers received a deferment prior, right, on another project?
Yes.
What was the interest rate on that?
That, I don't know.
That was on 20th Ave? Right,
They-
20th Ave?
They have
Yeah,
the
go ahead,
same
Ann.
interest
Come
rate,
on
but
up,
it
Ann.
was deferred for the first 15 years, I believe. No interest rate, if I remember.
I'm sorry. Hello.
Dan?
In
Dan
introduction.
Rassier with the Rassier Family Trust. The other assessment they're talking about is for the water main to the apartment building. And we were assessed, it was around 25,000 and 15 years to pay it, or if we sell any property, and it was 0 interest.
For the first 15, I think.
For 15 years, right, and
Yeah.
then after that, we would have to pay interest if we didn't pay it, and then it would be, if we sell any property though, we would be expected to pay the assessment in full.
And so then my question to Sue or Lori is, if it's 0 now, like it is on their first assessment, for 15 years, then an interest rate kicks in year 16, does that interest also get deferred? You just keep compounding?
Per the
They don't
statute.
have to send a check for the interest on year 16. It just
Right.
keeps adding up.
Correct.
So, and I did see the application, I didn't get to the details, but if the applicant is requesting the 0% on this assessment for 15 years, I support that because that's consistent with what we did before. So the market rate might be 4 or 4.5 or whatever it is, but I think we should have this, do it the same way we did before in this situation. That's my
Is that a motion?
only, it's not, it's a comment. It's not a, we did other comments, I can make a motion. I think that's a good idea, make a motion.
I would agree with what Kevin said. My question was gonna be, is there a precedent? And everything he's just stated, I believe, is our precedent. So I would agree with Kevin.
You mean a precedent of having,
It's
Had
happened
zero
before.
percent before, and like,
Yeah.
there's a specific example for
It's
him.
Lusner's are,
Same thing, yeah.
that's what we have on our large assessment for Field Street that got deferred. And then at 0. So there is a precedent.
I'd motion to that effect.
Second.
I get a motion and second, but would somebody state exactly what that was? Like
To-
0 for
To
15?
defer this assessment
Okay,
for 15 years at 0%.
okay. Very good. Motion and second to that effect. Questions or concerns? Sue, anything else?
I got a question on that. After the 15-year mark, what interest goes into effect?
The market rate,
The market rate?
yeah.
Okay.
Whatever we'd be charging on interest on whatever assessments were, like a street improvement, you know, whatever,
Okay,
whatever the market
whatever
rate
it's
would
gonna
be. Yeah.
with
That's what I'm
inflation.
guessing, right?
Okay.
It's up to the council to set it. So you could set it at what the 2024 assessments are at, whatever that rate is.
Sure.
Or,
It's our discretion.
yes.
It's our discretion.
I would add to that motion today's interest rate. No?
At year
No.
16?
No.
No?
And you don't add that, Bob, because we don't know what today's interest rate, you can't go 15 years out and say that's gonna be the interest rate.
Right.
It'd be tough to do.
Okay, I follow you now, yeah. I mean, it could be a positive or a negative. You know, so
You want to reiterate
Okay,
your motion,
yeah.
Kevin?
what the interest rate is at the time of the 15-year expiration.
It's a 15-year deferment, it's 0% interest, 0%, and then it'll kick in at year 16.
It would still be
Deferred.
deferred unless the property loses Green
Right.
Acres, but at that point, it would be the mark, whatever the city is charging
At
for
that point.
assessments at that point.
Okay. Everybody clear?
Mm-hmm.
Motion and second to that effect? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you very much.
We're skimming right along here.
Number 10, department reports.
Oh, run department reports. Come on, departments, say something.
I just have one, I'll jump in first. I will be out on Friday all day. We will be getting ready to move our son into his dorm, so I will be gone.
Sweet. Counselors, you got anything?
We had the groundbreaking today for the Hall Food and Tap. I know a lot of us were there, and it was a very nice groundbreaking. They thanked all the chefs and cuisines and restaurants that they're gonna have there, all the people that helped facilitate the construction and leading up to this point, and it was just a really nice groundbreaking.
Well,
Did you get to go to the WR too?
I didn't get to go to that.
yeah,
Did you?
I just walked through,
Okay.
and so you want to just tell everybody what we're talking about?
Oh, I'm sorry. The baby store, WR, and their addition
minis.
to, and
WR
so
Littles.
that's why I thought you were gonna head over there. But yeah, really exciting to have that in our repertoire of businesses now. So
I was there for about 2 hours and it was awesome. 5 kids, I mean. Yeah, it was really good attendance.
Did you see all my beautiful woodwork?
that was yours.
They
most of
threw
it.
that out. They didn't. You know, Laura and I were talking earlier, and I don't have really anything to say about, except that, but we were talking about earlier about the increased volume on First and soon to be Second, and how we're gonna try to control both traffic, pedestrian and vehicle via sidewalks or crossings, or, that, to me, that's kind of like the next big thing from that northwest side of town, so something we'll have to keep in mind. I don't have really anything else. Anybody? Staff, anybody? Randy, any? Okay. Item 12, closed meeting pursuant to Minnesota State Statute 13D05 Subdivision 3C. The St. Joseph City Council will enter into closed session to consider counteroffers for the acquisition of portions of the following properties. PID 84.53300.0268, owned by Ryan Parsons. PID 84.53546.005, owned by Bill Arndt. And PIDs 84.53360.00003 and 84.53360.004, owned by WG Properties.
Gotta get off here.
Mayor, we'd like to add one more property. We had communication today on 701 Elm Street, so we'd like to add that to the closed hearing as well.
Do I need, And 701 Elm Street as well. I don't have a PID or anything, or,
I don't have the
Oh,
PID
okay.
number, but we've got
We'll-
the address.
okay, we'll be talking about 701 Elm Street as well. So, we'll come back after those discussions and adjourn.
Recording stopped. So, just hold on.
Okay.
So I gotta list everything that we're doing
Oh,
here.
sorry.
Are we recording right now?
So it's recording on Zoom currently. Do you want the audio broadcasted? No, correct?
No.
No, just recording in here.
And recording in here is going, not broadcasting.
Okay.
Okay.
So pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D05, Subdivision 3C3, City Council is in a closed session to consider counteroffers for the acquisition of portions of the following properties. PID 84.53300.0268 owned by Ryan Parsons. PID